Well, Todd, we're up right now on YouTube. This is the unedited edition. Are you ready to start timelines?
Ready to go?
Okay. Todd, welcome to Timelines of Success.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Well, you look good today. We're both in Reno. That's unique.
Yeah. I didn't realize it when we scheduled, but it turned out we had some connections going back a while when you met my wife.
Right. And our daughters are both in high school in Reno as freshmen.
Yeah, and all these connections we didn't know. And here we are on Skype like we're talking across the world.
Right. And we both are busy, I'm sure.
Yep.
So normally we do an elevator speech, but you said you don't do elevator speeches. Tell
Yeah,
me
I mean,
about
I
your
can tell
business.
I can tell you what I do, but it's not an elevator speech. It's not like some refined 30-second blurb or something. Um, I have a site called Financial Mentor and financialmentor.com, and I teach wealth building, specifically advanced retirement planning strategy and advanced investment strategy.
So, how did you get to where you are today?
My background is I started in the hedge fund business. So when I came out of college, I had this crazy idea that I could make money from assets without knowing anything about them, just from a statistical and mathematical standpoint. And it turned out I was right. I was one of the early pioneers in the hedge fund world, statistical risk management, and ran that for quite a few years. And I quote unquote, here, let me do air quotes for you. I quote unquote retired at age 35, which obviously by my goatee was quite some time ago.
Right. And we're pretty close to the same age. Where'd you go to school?
In terms of college, UC Davis and
That's what I thought.
UCLA, and then in terms of high school, Acalanes High School down in Lafayette, California.
Yeah, I saw Davis in there. It's a nice school. It's a good
Yeah,
school.
it was good. It was
Most
good.
mostly people in ag come out of there though.
That's kind of a misnomer. It's definitely an ag school, but there's a lot more to it than there. I mean, as a matter of fact, it because there's so many pre-meds and pre-laws there, it was actually tougher than UCLA, in my opinion.
Oh, I believe it. It's a beautiful school. It's a great location. Nice place to go to school. So, in your
Yeah.
business, tell us more about your financial, your background and finances, and how we can apply some of the things that you teach.
Well, I have kind of an engineer's bent to how I go about this stuff. To me, building wealth, managing investments, it all boils down to mathematics. And I don't want to intimidate people with it. It's not like advanced mathematics, it's high school mathematics. The stuff that works is essentially very simple. There's a lot of complexity in understanding it and why it works, but the actual implementation of it in the math is really simple. And so my whole background on the investment side was developing what I'll call statistical risk management systems in the financial markets. And so again, I was one of the early pioneers in that, did it. It worked great. We had a hedge fund. Oh, let's see, for 12 years, we managed through presidential assassinations, nuclear meltdowns, bull markets, bear markets, the 87 crash, everything in between. And we had 100% winning years. Our worst year, the investors lost a small percent, even though the portfolio was up. The portfolio was up not quite enough to offset expenses and management fee, which was very high in those days. We had a 3% management fee. You'd never charge that today, but back then it was fine.
For the listener, explain what a hedge fund is.
Well, hedge fund's a bit of a misnomer. There's a lot of different categories of hedge funds. So you could have global macro, which is nothing more than somebody making calls on what's going to go up or what's going to go down, and they're making judgment calls. You can have risk arbitrage. You could have long short equity market neutral. There's a variety of strategies that you can implement that would fall under the big, broad umbrella of hedge funds. But basically, in a nutshell, there's skill-based investing where the return comes from the skill of the manager, not from the market returns that you get like a normal buy and hold strategy.
So, how does a person get into that type of business? Get into hedge
Well,
funds? It takes money, of course. It takes clients.
well, do you mean get into it from an investor side or from a manager side like
Oh,
I did?
from a manager like you did.
You don't really. I mean, you kind of have to know what you're doing in terms of skill. I had a passion for the math side of the business. I had this crazy vision, as I told you, that I could make money off assets without knowing anything about them. It was just simply mathematics. And it turned out it was true. Everybody told me it wasn't. My investments professor, who was a very successful investor, told me he'd never heard of such a thing. And you got to go back in time. I mean, this was in the early 80s, right? Like 82, 81. IBM was coming out with its first PC. Apple was just getting started in the garage. Um, you know,
84, right?
yeah, nobody had any idea about, I mean, there was no computer databases of data or anything like that. Nobody was doing this stuff. It was just me understanding math and looking at charts and going, this doesn't look that hard. And it turned out it worked.
So that's just statistics. I say that right?
Say that fast, huh?
Statistics. Yeah, where you look at the charts. What was it? Barron's used to have a set of charts. I forgot the print ones or timeline. I forgot what they used to call them.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend 20 calls going into how it works. So, what I'm saying is that it's mathematical algorithms.
Right.
It's algorithmic trading derived around math and how it works with the price movements and
And it's changed so much since 82, 84. Like you said, nowadays it's online trade, online. Everything is so much analysis, so many tools out there, it seems.
Yeah, but when you get the principles right, the principles are timeless. So the stuff I did way back then, I still do today. It still works today. It's just, there's been a lot of clutter, a lot of noise. There's a lot of new inventions, but in the end, the principles that are valid remain timeless.
Now, you also have a podcast.
Yes, I do. Financial Mentor is the podcast as well as the website.
And you have an amazing website. I looked at your website.
Thanks.
Now, did you contract that out to set up your business you have now?
Yeah, pieces are contracted, pieces are my own responsibility. I've got another version coming out in a month. I had such a radical change in the website back in September that I was bound to make a few mistakes. And it turns out the mistakes were inherent in the design. And so I'm actually coming out with a new design here in about a month. It's in the can, it's already done. It's just my programmer can't get to putting it in place yet.
Right. Websites have changed quite a bit in the last couple of years. WordPress is constantly updating, and then the technologies are moving pretty fast, even in that environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a moving target. That's one of the weird things about this business, or interesting things about this business, is it moves away from you as fast as you can move toward it.
Right. Now, we were both down at New Media Exposition or National Broadcasters Association combination. What do you think of this show?
Well, I didn't go to any of this show. I came down Wednesday afterwards. I don't.
Okay. Wednesday night, Thursday morning was the last part. Okay.
Yeah, my value was on the people that I was connecting with down there. It wasn't on the actual presentations of the show. But of course, one of the people I was connecting with, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, was the keynote speaker.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. I guess he really knocked it out of the park. So I'm really, really happy for him.
I saw his keynote. It was very good. Very good. So you got to meet with him? How do you know Pat?
Well, Pat and then another person, Jamie Tardy from eventualmillionaire.com,
Right.
we're all in a mastermind together. So we all mastermind each other's businesses and help develop each other's businesses.
That's good. Pat Flynn definitely is a leader in the field and industry.
Yeah. And he's everything he appears to be. He's a really nice guy. He's a really hard worker, and he's just really smart, and he goes for it, and he just methodically keeps building.
Now,
He's
Jamie
what he appears to be.
Jamie wasn't there this year, was she?
Who?
Jamie Tardy wasn't there, I don't think.
Yeah, she was there.
I didn't see her. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know John Lee Dumas trained under Jamie Tardy, who's a fairly successful podcaster in the digital media business.
Correct.
So how long have you been podcasting now?
Well, I was I guess they have a term for it, pod fade. I did 20 issues or 20 episodes. And then I'm just actually, coincidentally, here you go, after a year of being off the charts, I'm going to issue another episode today. It's just,
Very good.
I'm just doing a final proofread of the show notes before I hit the publish button. So after a year of being in the dark, I'm issuing another episode. So anyway, it's, I just had other priorities. What I did was I did a complete content audit and site audit, and it took quite a while. It was a way bigger commitment when you've got a site with years and years of content on it to go through and audit the content, put up the new design, rework everything. I mean, it was a massive project. And so something had to give, and I dropped the podcast for a while.
It's easy to drop the podcast. I've done that from time to time. I always try to get at least a few out each month, but it's a wonderful platform, but it does take some time. It's more of a commitment than people realize.
Oh, yeah. And the commitment is on the tail end. I mean, when you really understand how all the pieces go together, for me, doing the transcript, the show notes, you can get the transcript done fairly cheap by delegating it out. But in the end, it needs editing because they never get it right. And, it's got to be interlinked within the site. And there's a lot to it.
Yeah, the editing is really key. I just on a side note, I really like podcasting, first of all. And I have 3 shows that I'm in with. And one of them's a tech show, which the coders actually came to me and I put together, which was fun. But the one I do once a month, it's called Politics of Success. And I think that might be the way to go. One really good show a month. Because you're getting your message out, you're getting your platform, whatever your business might be. So how does your podcast help your group that you're in right now? You have
Well,
a
the podcast is a huge big deal because I'm known for technical writing to the point that, one of my posts actually got picked up by an academic research publication and republished there. I think it was, always get the names wrong. It's like either Journal of Personal Finance or something like that. I forget. It was really funny, right? Because you got, a group of maybe 4 or 5 authors in any publication, and, it'll say the guy's name and it has this long list of acronyms after, for all his degrees and all his certifications. It says Todd Tresidder, financial coach. It just looks kind of funny in there. But they invited it in. I wrote a piece on 4% rule and safe withdrawal rates in retirement. And the comment from the lead person involved in the publication was they couldn't believe I wrote it. They had never seen anything of that quality outside the academic circles. And so I'm known for my reputation is I simplify very complex financial topics. I make them accessible to the average person without dumbing them down so that people can understand them and how they work. I hit to the salient points. That's kind of my gift. But in the process, I write fairly long posts, 3,000, 6,000 word posts. And so what the podcast did is it made me real. People
right.
were reading my stuff. I had comments from people where they'd say, "Wow, Todd, I've read your stuff for a couple years and I always liked your stuff. It was kind of hard for me. I had to really work through it and learn it, but it was really valuable and I loved it. I heard your podcast. I went, wow, I'd love to work with that guy. He's like a normal guy. Like I thought he was just this academic dweeb or something. He's actually a nice, normal guy that I could talk to." So that was the good thing about the podcast is a great relationship builder. It brought full circle my work and made it more trustworthy.
Right. That's a really really good point. And congratulations on being published. That's a tough thing to do. I
Yeah, thanks.
I led PhDs overseas. I'm not a PhD, of course, but they're all trying to get published.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't try. I just set out to write a really nice piece, and then I got invited in. It came cold. They
Well, that's
invited
good.
it in and wanted to publish it, so I
That's a
didn't even try.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, and
So,
then the Wall Street Journal picked it up,
oh
Investors
wow.
Business Daily picked it up, a whole bunch of people picked it up.
Well, that could lead to a lot of different questions. IBD and and the Wall Street Journal. Which do you like to read? Both.
None. I don't read anything. The
Okay.
only the only
Just
stuff I read, I don't read any news of the day. I don't follow any news. It drives my wife nuts, right?
right.
Like there'll be this major international thing going on, and she'll like turn to me and talk to me about it, and then she'll catch herself and go, "Do you know anything about that?" And I'll go, "No, I never heard of it before." I'm blissfully ignorant of a lot of what goes on. And then I focus and I go really deep on subjects that matter to me. So, the stuff I read is academic level research. I do research of my own, probe deep into subjects as I'm developing content on them. But in terms of daily media, I consider it, it's like media porn. It's like just entertainment value. There's no real business value or real value in the decision process.
I agree with you. It's entertainment more than anything else. Well, there's some news in there, but you can always get the news later on that's been filtered out.
Yeah, and it deceives. I mean, we sit there and think, oh, we're in touch with society, we're keeping up with the moves of the day, but in the end, it's just entertainment. It's no different than watching a TV show or something.
Yep, that's exactly correct. So, a couple of things. You talked about the 4% rule. What is that?
It was originally founded by or developed by William Bengen quite a while ago, and it was in response to Peter Lynch had made a comment that the average return on stocks was 7%, and therefore you should be able to withdraw 7% from your portfolio. And if you know the math and you know how this works, that's patently false. There's a concept called sequence of returns risk, which is the sequence of returns doesn't matter if you have a fixed amount of money at the beginning of your period and a fixed amount of money at the end, and you just have the compound return along. Then the math is such that the sequence of returns doesn't matter. But if you're adding to the portfolio or you're subtracting from the portfolio along the way, which retirees are, of course, they're subtracting, then the sequence of returns is a huge big deal. Not a little deal, but a huge big deal. And the research shows that the bulk of the probability of whether you're financially secure or not is determined by the first 10 to 15 years of returns in your portfolio after retirement. And that's the sequence of returns risk. And so I go into, so William Bengen, when he did the research, he used real-time data to show that he determined that roughly 4% was a safe withdrawal rate. But then I go into much more detail and show that it, according to Wade Pfau, it failed on international data 100% of the time. There's a lot more to it than is commonly understood. But as usual, what happens is when you get a really simple rule and it kind of halfway close makes sense, it gets adopted and becomes mainstream wisdom. And that's what happened with the 4% rule. But you have to go much deeper to really understand how it works, where it's valid, where it's not, what it's correlated with, what the risks are. You just have to take it deeper before you bet your entire financial security on it.
So one thing that when I listen to you talk about your business, congratulations on retiring so early and then being able to do those things you want to do and living in Reno. It's a great place. Since you're in Reno, I always like to ask, what brought you here?
Well, originally, if you really want to know
No,
the
no
story,
state income tax.
yeah, it was no income tax. I did it when I was in the hedge fund business. So I left the great state of California and moved to Nevada. So there was partially that. That was a long time ago, though. And there was also quality of life issues. I was down in Southern California and enjoying that lifestyle while I was young and in college. And I just kind of reached a point. I said, I want to live at Lake Tahoe. And so my first move up was Incline Village.
No, that's very nice.
Yeah, I lived in Incline Village for 12 years, met my wife up there. We got married, and then eventually we wanted to have kids. And if you know the areas, Incline's not the best place to raise kids, at least in my humble opinion. And so we decided we
Interesting.
really wanted to move down into Reno. And back then we used to call it going down the Drano, right? And
Not
so because it's
Rose.
off, yeah, it's off the hill, right? And
Right.
so we moved down to Reno, and we've been here ever since. We love it. So we've been here 15 years now, almost 16
No,
years.
it's a really nice town. It's kind of isolated in some aspects. It is the biggest little city, and it's isolated. We've got a heck of an airport, though.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm going to ask you some quick questions. I call them bottom line up front questions. And so, what type of computer and iPhone or phone do you use? I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to edit that out. Man, I'm like stale today. I've been like doing too much stuff. You're my second interview. Here we go, Todd. So, Todd, here's the bottom line up front. Not Todd. Yeah, Todd. Todd, here's the bottom line up front questions. What type of phone and computer do you use?
A computer, I'm looking at an HP Ultrabook, so I'm a PC-based guy. I'm definitely not an Apple fan, although I do. Go ahead, what?
I met your wife in an Apple store here.
Yeah, I know. My wife's an Apple fan, and my
Okay.
daughter's an Apple fan. I'm
Okay.
not. I'm old school. I mean, I was programming
Right.
computers with DOS, and I've been doing it for a long time. I'm very comfortable on a PC-based system, but I also have to acknowledge the Apple's really useful for audio, video editing, things like that. And so we got my wife an Apple, and she does all the Apple side of the business for us. So I work off an HP Ultrabook because it's very easy to travel with, and my computing needs are very light. I do everything on the internet, word processing. The memory you can get in an Ultrabook's plenty for me.
Right.
So I've got that, and so it's a really good travel computer too, with the long battery life and everything. And then for the phone, I've got an iPhone 5 because my daughter and my wife took the upgrades and got the sixes. And I don't even like my Apple phone. The only reason I do it is I'm a big fan of podcasting. And so it's really handy for iTunes and for podcasting. And so that's the only reason I have it. But frankly, I'm not even a fan of the iPhone. But I do like iTunes, so I use it.
Yep. It works. I think the new 6 is nice. I have the 5 also. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite technology? And what makes you more productive types of technology?
Oh boy. It's funny. Technology is a love-hate relationship. I can't say that I have a favorite piece of technology, although I can also say I couldn't even do my business without technology. I guess if I had to have a favorite piece, it would be the internet itself. The internet's changed my world, and it's changed so many people's world. And it's the amount of information you have at your fingertips is absolutely phenomenal now. And the way we can do business with these narrow niche businesses, long tail businesses, is something brand new that you couldn't have done, before this.
So, and you're looking at your mathematical models. I'm going to deviate a little bit.
Sure.
A lot of technology has changed dramatically. I mean, dramatically in the last 5 years.
Right.
Do you take that into account, or
In
look
what
at
way? What do you
like
mean?
a growth or where you invest or what's going to happen?
No, I do everything by math. I don't have fundamental stories in my head. What I will say is this, though, I do find it interesting that the last computer I got for the first time ever was not a generation ahead. In other words, when I bought this Ultrabook, it still used the same Windows operating system, just a slightly different version.
Windows 7,
And
I take it.
yeah, Windows 7,
That's like
and
XP.
it still uses, it had similar memory configurations, similar stuff. I mean, and I get a lot of use out of a computer. When I buy a computer, I usually beat the heck out of it because I'm on the thing all day, every day. And when it's done, it's done. They're not even usable usually. And so that's usually a 3 to 5 year window. And in the past, every time, it's Moore's Law, right?
Hmm.
And so every time each computer has been a huge upgrade, and this one was a sideways, which was phenomenal to me. I mean, literally, I questioned it. I thought I was making a bad decision, and I had to question some experts as to how it could be that I should be buying a computer that's sideways after so many years. And so I think things are changing. It's just not the same Moore's Law.
Yeah, I would say the RAM, just the RAM is the biggest thing that costs the RAM going down, but everything else is a nominal change. Yeah, things are,
Yeah.
some of the hardware is getting better. That's interesting viewpoint. What quote best motivates you?
Oh, let me look on my computer screen here. I have some hanging up, so I'm going to look to the side from the screen now. Here's one. Don't let the fear of the time it will take to accomplish something stand in the way of your doing it. The time will pass anyway. We might just as well put that passing time to the best possible use. And that's Earl Nightingale. So I like that one. Here's another one from Unknown. It's use the talents you possess, for the woods would be very silent if no birds sang except the best.
Right. Hey, so you mentioned Earl Nightingale. Our generation, we're pretty close to the same age, sort of came up with Earl Nightingale. Did you ever listen to his little tapes he used to send once a month?
Long ago, Nightingale Conant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, some of the personal growth stuff from way back when. Yeah.
That was the only thing around that I could really find. They had tapes. They sent it was a monthly tape or something, and some of his lead the field, things of that nature.
Yeah. Now try to imagine marketing that with all the podcasting out there.
Oh, I got to tell you one true story. We've had a real estate company for 20 some odd years in California, along with other things. And I always thought that I wanted to do like a CD once a month and mail it out to agents because
Hmm.
I went back in another program for 5 years. So sort of out of the business overseas. And when I came back, that's what I wanted to do. And then like in 2012, I said, wow, podcasting. Everything else has changed so much, a lot. The hardware didn't change, but I'll tell you what, the platforms changed dramatically. YouTube, it's been 10 years ago today that the first YouTube was posted.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all benefiting the consumer. I mean, the consumer is the great benefactor of this. Plus, the producer has advantage. I mean, basically, we're all media companies now.
Uh,
It used to be that media was controlled, and it's opened up now, and we're all our own media producers, and you create your own celebrity.
but down at Las Vegas last week, I felt so small being a podcaster looking over at the National Broadcasters Association side. They are
Well, they
huge, a lot of
recognize
money.
it too.
Uh,
That's why the large corporations are getting in on it, and they're all building out their brand in the podcasting. They recognize it. I mean, you look at the total downloads for episodes exceed views on television in some cases. So, this is not some joke. This is serious where it's going. And I don't watch, like I said, I don't watch conventional television, but I sure as heck download a lot of podcasts because I learn great stuff from them.
I do too. Very good. And who is your favorite book and author? I see you got a lot of books behind you.
A favorite book and author from the thousands read. I couldn't. You know what I'm not good at, Bill? I'm not good at absolutes. Like, what's your best this or your
Yeah,
favorite that? That's not, I don't think that way.
that's a good
Um,
way. Good way not to
I'll
think.
give you one I read recently, which I thought was really interesting and relevant for this conversation, was Essentialism by Mckkeown. I can't pronounce his name. It's Mckeown. And it's something that's kind of going around the internet circles right now quite a bit, internet marketing circles. And it's all about focusing on the essential thing, because we're all in a world now where there's way more opportunity and things that we can do than we can ever accomplish in our lifetimes. And so you have to become very good at isolating what's essential and focusing on that and going deep into it and not being distracted by all the clutter. So
That,
it's a very interesting book.
that makes sense to me, and especially the changes. You don't have there's so many ways not to focus, like with our smartphones, the computer, so on and so forth, and the internet.
Yeah.
They call it bright shiny objects for
Yeah,
they
bright
could
shiny object syndrome.
instead of focusing in
Squirrel?
what you,
Squirrel?
squirrel.
Squirrel?
Yeah. It's tough. So in tying it all together, what do you like to do in your off time in this beautiful city of Reno?
I do backpacking. I hike the John Muir Trail, which you probably know it's from Yosemite Valley up to the peak of Mount Whitney. I do mountain biking. I do a lot of road cycling, swimming, running. I mean, I run every other day just to keep in shape. So hang with my kids, go out with my wife. I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty normal guy. Just mostly my stuff comes from outdoor athletics, you know.
You've done that entire trip from the Yosemite floor up to the top of Whitney.
Yeah,
You come out the porthole on the front side and
yeah,
Lone Pine.
yeah.
That's a tough
But
climb. That's what, about 3 weeks?
yeah, we did it in 17 days.
That's very good.
And yeah, and it was amazing. We called it the Fire and Ice Tour because we sandwiched it right between the Yosemite fires. And this is a
Hmm.
couple of years ago. We had the Yosemite
Oh, I
fires.
remember those fires. That's my first years here coming back.
Yeah, we
Huge.
literally came in while it was burning and started and just started working our way south while it was burning. And then, but we had to hike down because we couldn't even drive in because of the fires. So we had to hike to get to the starting point of the hike.
Oh,
And then, and then when we exited, we were way ahead of schedule. We ended up way ahead of our schedule. It was just me and a buddy, and we got a lot faster than we thought we'd be. And then when we exited, literally the next day, we're driving home from Lone Pine. We spent the night in Lone Pine and had beers and a nice
yep.
steak dinner and
I
stuff.
love
And
Lone Pine.
yeah, just kind of chilled out and everything, and looking up at the peak we had just come down from. You just dropped from a 14,000 foot peak,
Right.
and
14,508.
okay, well, you know better than I do. And I
Oh,
climbed
last
it.
year I was to the front side.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so you come down from there, we're having a nice dinner. The next morning we wake up and it's snowing.
Oh, what
And
time of year was it?
this was in September.
Oh,
And
September.
yeah, and
That's a
so we
great. That's
drove
when you're supposed to climb too, because no lightning.
we drove home in the middle of it's storming and snowing and raining.
Wow.
And my wife was climbing with my girls down in an area down near Mammoth a couple weeks later, and people were exiting off the trail because they were waist deep waist deep or chest deep in snow on the trail,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
they couldn't do it, so they had to exit literally 2 weeks later.
I remember that. I remember that snow. It came in. Yeah, it was interesting, and we didn't get
Yeah, so
much
we,
snow
we
up
got
here.
yeah, we got totally lucky. I mean, literally day to day, we squeezed it between the fire and the snow. Literally day to day, and we had perfect weather the whole time. Just pure luck.
Well, for those listening out there, you can climb Mount Whitney, but you have to sign up early. In fact, I tried to. I put in my name this year for a 3 day for an overnight pass, and I didn't get it. But I can reapply again for September. I think the 1st of May. 1 May. Yeah, 1 May at midnight.
Yeah, see, and for us, we come in through the back door, because we come down from the north, and so as part of our permit to do the John Muir Trail, it includes the Whitney Portal.
That's a tough permit though too to get.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
There's only about 20, 30 of those a day.
yeah, but we were flexible. It didn't matter on our start days. It turned out our start date was perfect, so you just keep trying until you get it.
By the way, folks, that's one of the best things about living on this side of Sierra. We have great backpacking, mountain climbing, whatever it might be. Hunters, I don't know, Hunter's Trail. I'm very close to Hunter's Trail.
Yeah.
And it's a little creek that comes out of the mountain. You go up, there's a waterfall, but the water's like the same all year round. So I'm guessing that there's some kind of crevice, some kind of water coming up out of the ground via Lake Tahoe. I got a theory. It's definitely spring fed because it doesn't change. It like always looks the same amount of water.
Yeah.
I can't figure that out. So anyway, that's wonderful. So in closing, what's the one takeaway that you would give the listener about our talk today? What advice would you give them?
Is it our talk or is it in the so
I mean,
is it about
well,
success?
let me read this over. In closing, this is the most important question for the listener. What is the best advice and most important takeaway from this interview?
Oh, I don't know if it's from this interview. Again, you're asking me a superlative, the best,
Oh,
but
I've
the
never.
extreme
You're
thing.
first. 100,
Like
125
for me,
interviews.
yeah, for me, it's I think if you're looking towards success, I assume you're interviewing on success principles and all that. And to me, it's all about persistence. It's about being clear and committed to what you want to create in this world and being persistent enough to stay after it until you get it. If you're clear on your commitment, you can pretty, unless you're a real loony bin and you create goals that are just off the charts, you can create what you want in life. You just have to be committed and go out and do it.
That was a good thought you just put out about what I'm trying to do, to achieve. And I think you have to, if you ever start podcasting, you have to find your voice because it's unique. You can learn more about yourself. My first interview was my uncle who was at Guadalcanal and what he did. He's 95 and he got a great interview. and you see perspectives. I think our perspectives change as we grow older, but it's really cool.
Absolutely.
So my daughter is back from Reno High School, one
There
of
you
them.
go.
And so, in closing, how can we reach you?
The best place is the hub of all my work, which is financialmentor.com. So financialmentor.com.
Very good. And one last question: what's your favorite food?
Ooh,
Uh,
I
did-
don't have a favorite, Bill.
I know.
When am I going to give that to you? I have a
I
lot
know.
that
I say, oh no, I can't ask this.
I
What
have a
foods do you
lot that I
like?
enjoy. I love
Now, I
Thai
do have a
food.
favorite food.
Huh?
Go ahead. I have a favorite food.
Okay, how about this? Chocolate.
Oh, I love chocolate. That's true.
Okay,
There's
but
different kinds of food. I think.
I love Thai food. Thai food's awesome. Yeah, there's lots of different foods. I love Mexican food, but I love chocolate too.
So, where do you eat out most often in Reno?
I go all over the place. I'm not that way, man. I don't have a concentration.
That's interesting. You're a first.
A lot of people tell me that.
You're definitely a first. Your wife is. Your wife isn't like you are. I don't think.
No, no, we're very
It'd be
different.
a different interview. That's good. That's how people do best together. Well,
Yeah.
Todd, this has been a fun interview. Hope to see you around Reno. Buy a cup of coffee one day, and that's good.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Take
Thanks for
care.
having me.
Hey, on a side note, do you know where you're moving over here?
No, we don't. We'd love to get into Juniper Hills if we could find the right place.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you
Is that
know,
where you are? If you're talking about
no, I'm
Creek
in.
Trail.
Well, no, up there is really nice. I walk over there from here though. I actually walk. I live at right now. We have a beautiful home in California, and we've been leasing or renting over here in Mayberry and McCarran up the corner by the field. It's
Okay.
flat. Really not. We really like the neighborhood though. Man, I love it. It's so close to downtown. I used to work at the Collective downtown, Reno Collective. Was there for a while. It's on Arlington and 100
Okay.
Arlington, which First Street in Arlington. And I just like going down there. I like walking or jogging, and I'd go out and fish the river all the time. Just a quick fish. Not
Yeah, that's why we're wanting to go to that end of town between my older daughter already at Reno High, and we've decided Reno High is the best high school in town. So even though my younger daughter may not go to the tech program, we want to be in that school zone
I did my
because
research.
yeah,
It
we did the
is.
research too, and we think it's the best school in town. And so, um, we just said, our whole life is over at that end of town anyway, and we want the kids over there for the school. So why are we at the south end of town? It just didn't make sense anymore. It was great for the time my kids were at Mountain View. My kids were at Mountain View
Mhm.
Montessori for a while.
When I was first got here, I researched the area. I looked at the south end of town. Uh, I know some people in Arrow Creek. I can't afford Arrow Creek, but it's a nice area. I mean, I think Arrow Creek, what's about 500, 600,000 and up.
And I,
Yeah, I've got a six. I got a beautiful in California. My home in California over here would be a $700,000 house.
yeah.
It's actually
Yeah.
less.
So anyway, we like Juniper Hills because there's some good running trails out
Mhm.
there, and then you can
Yeah.
drop right down to the riding and shoot out to Verdi for a quick loop,
Yep.
and then you've got Collin Ranch for workout club, and you've got the pool,
Yep.
the 50-meter pool down at I
Down.
can't think of the park.
Yeah, just down by Reno.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's
Um,
kind of
I know
and
the
then
name.
all the nightlife downtown is what we do. So it doesn't make sense, to be at this end of town anymore.
You could. It's 45-minute walk from my house downtown. Where
Yeah.
it's crazy, and Reno's not that far.
Yeah,
How?
I tested the bike path. It was an 8-minute bike ride from Reno High to Juniper Hills.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's a good path. Good, you can stay along the river most of the way and then come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. I know the name of that road and the name of the park. Yeah, it's driving me nuts. I just said it. Hey, what's you say? I have a younger daughter.
Yeah, she's gonna be in 7th grade. She's in 6th grade now, and both my kids went all the way through Mountain View Montessori,
Yeah.
which is off of Zalesi
And
here.
they'll stay there. She'll stay
Well,
there.
Ashley will stay there until
Yeah,
she
yeah.
finishes. Yeah,
I'd say
and
the only negative is Swoop is not a great school. It's and then Gome is great, really nice school. Though. Swope was not.
yeah, we're not pulling them from Mountain View. We're
Yeah,
very happy with what they've learned there and
that's
how it's
good.
worked.
Yeah, my son went to private school until he was 8th grade in high school. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Interesting interview. It was. It'll come out good. I'll edit it. I'll edit the crap out of it. That's one thing I don't like though. Editing does take a lot of time.
Yeah, I usually don't edit mine, but
Oh, you don't? I use Adobe Audition, and
yeah.
I don't know who you have someone edit yours.
Well, Catherine, my wife, will clean up the
That's
file,
what
but
she said.
she doesn't really edit it. She just cleans up the file.
I take the us out of it. I'll cut a little bit if it's stupid. if we say something. If I had a couple things where I restated. Really weird today. I haven't interviewed for like 2.5 weeks. I'm like stale. It's really weird. Usually I have all my questions memorized, and I've got different shows too.
All right. Well, if you don't like the interview and you want to redo it, just let me know. If you decide you've got something else you want to say and you
Uh,
decide you want to retake, just let me know.
It'll be fun. Um,
Okay.
Anything else? Do you get into politics at all around at all? Look at politics in town? Where
Who's that?
you don't get into politics. That's
No.
actually